Thank you, Mr Chairman. I want to speak about Supplementary Order Paper number 413 to start my contribution, the amendments to the Child Support Act 1991. But my colleagues opposite tell me that's part 3, so I shall, despite my eagerness, save that for my debate on part 3. It is something that I do look forward to discussing. It's one of the more embarrassing parts for the government, where they are delaying again child support changes because they aren't able to implement them because they have a computer system that is out of date. And within part 2, though, there is plenty to debate here in this House, because part 2 covers a number of elements of amending our tax system that Labor supports. And indeed, Labor will support this bill through the House, as my colleague Andrew Little alluded to in his recent contribution, because we do need to have some rates set. We need the system to carry on, but we actually also want to ensure that these things are properly debated and that we get to a fairer society in future. We're not conceding the point that this could be a much fairer bill, that this bill could be directed to driving New Zealand's economy forward, and that a future Labor government will indeed do that. And Mr Little quite rightly makes that point, and hopefully that will come sooner rather than later. Mr Key's threat on bringing the election forward to a month away would be good news for New Zealanders, because they are getting sick and tired of this arrogant, out-of-touch government and are ready to see a new government with big ideas, willing to tackle the real problems New Zealand has, such as pro-growth tax reform, the kind of capital gains tax that would see money shift from the speculative sector into the productive sector, such as decent KiwiSaver policies, such as, and I could go on, but I'm going to come back to those things that we're supporting in this bill. The reason that Labor is supporting the bill is because there are some sensible things in this bill, Mr Chair, and though it may pain me to say that, it does have some sensible content in the middle of it. The disposal of emissions units, the way in which foreign superannuation withdrawals are treated, albeit that we see some difficulties with the anomaly between Australian treatment and the rest of the world, where if somebody goes on an OE, say a set of twins goes on their OE, and one goes to England and one goes to Australia, that the twin that goes to Australia will get much more favourable treatment as they bring their savings back to New Zealand. We see the anomaly in that treatment, but we also see in this bill some definitions around mineral mining that are designed and were debated extensively in Select Committee, in part under Mr Goldsmith's guidance from his position as chair, where we looked at the ways in which mining would be treated, so that it set the right incentives, that massive profits weren't raked, that the system was fair, and that it would work from an industry perspective. We also set some rates to do with damage from the Canterbury earthquakes, and we debated those points also in the committee. And it's one of those situations where across the House we can have a really constructive discussion to make the law better and fitting for all New Zealanders. And it is always a pleasure to be a part of those discussions in Select Committee and a part of making law better through detailed investigation, through the contributions of many people who came into the Select Committee, gave of their own expertise and advice in order to make the law better and more applicable in the national interest, in the best sense of that term. And we amended things, in terms of calculations of family credits, parental tax and so on, definitions that were changed in the bill in relation to the Canterbury earthquake situation. We looked also at IFRS financial reporting methods. There were a number of technical aspects that we worked on, considered the submissions on, and made our own decisions on, and agreed as a group that the law could be improved on. So I want to offer my commendations to those I worked with on that committee for their efforts in making that part of the law better. But, Mr Chair, I want to turn to foreign superannuation changes, because changes are needed, and the proposals do have the merit of simplicity that should eliminate uncertain treatment, which has been a problem since it was first identified in 2006. But there are a number of things with which people will be uncomfortable. And we've seen in recent days the Minister move a further amendment that pushes out a date so that the legislation doesn't become retrospective, Mr Chair, doesn't become retrospective on the basis of those who have already lodged a complaint, because this legislation obviously is moving slowly through the House and could capture another group that weren't intended to be collected on the way through. Now, Mr Chair, withdrawals in the first 4 years after a person becomes resident will not be taxable in future, and these are designed to ensure that things are translated from the Australian system to the New Zealand system in a way that is fair. I've alluded to the double standards where we have different countries adopting different rules, and we know that we inch towards fairness. It's good to see the government making changes based on a principle of fairness in this part of the bill, in sharp contrast to the first part where we reaffirmed rates of taxation which we on this side certainly see as unfair, where the wealthiest have benefited and middle New Zealand struggles to get ahead because of that 2010 tax swindle that took so much out of the pockets of ordinary New Zealanders to pay for the wealthiest. I welcome the Minister and the Chair, Michael Woodhouse, and look forward to his contributions on this debate, because it is a debate about fairness in our tax system, and he was answering questions on fairness in terms of the lot of veterans earlier in question time, and I heard a question raised about the RSA in Mosgiel and whether Mr Woodhouse knew that members there were going without meals as a consequence of an unfair system, which brings me back to the point about fairness in this bill, Mr Chair. And so that is why I look forward to the member Michael Woodhouse's contribution on the fairness or not of the overall bill, if you will, Mr Chair, allow him that breadth of discussion, as we certainly on this side will be prepared to do, because we are interested in what he has to say in that particular instance. It's not good to hear that our veterans are going hungry in New Zealand because of an unfair system, and particularly in Dunedin, a place that I care deeply about. So the problems that do exist with the super changes, well, the first issue is that it will apply to all transfers, even those made into a locked-in scheme such as a KiwiSaver fund. And in this case, it's proposed to allow the taxpayer to withdraw an amount up to the value of the tax due from the KiwiSaver scheme. It sounds good, but it ignores the fact that where the transfer is made from a UK pension fund, withdrawing funds could possibly either invalidate the transfer or trigger a 55% tax charge in the UK. Now, we know there are ways around this, and we know that it's going to be very important that there is a clear education campaign put forward by the IRD, and we trust that they will do that in a manner that is comprehensive and competent, because largely they are a competent department. Unfortunately, they have not always been guided by competent ministers, and that's probably why they are struggling to keep up in terms of their computer system, in terms of implementing changes that would make a fairer tax system. But we know that the officials that appear before the committee have great integrity, take away our questions and supply us with full and helpful answers on the committee. So I take my hat off to them in passing as we debate these changes put forward in this bill. So, Mr Chairman, I draw my conclusion here on this debate in part two, on part two here in this bill, to a conclusion with Labour's support for the sensible changes it contains to ensure that the taxation of mineral mining is done fairly in a way that doesn't allow exploitation of the rules, and with some reservations, support of changes to taxation of foreign superannuation and support for the Canterbury earthquake tax measures. We work constructively on the Select Committee across the House, and it is a pleasure to be able to support those aspects of the bill which make a difference to our tax law, that make it fairer. We are just disappointed that in terms of the overall picture of our tax system, we don't have a system currently where middle New Zealand has the opportunities to get ahead. Those who are struggling and working hard don't have a system that enables them the opportunities to get ahead, where cost of living is rising, and those at the wealthiest end of the spectrum are reaping the real gains of any economic recovery. Thank you, Mr Chairman.
Maggie Barry.
Thank
Mr Chair. I rise to take a call on the taxation annual rates foreign superannuation.